We're inside Elliot's Law for another episode of When Black Men Talk. I just happen to be Mark Elliott, your host. Appreciate you giving an ear. You know, music can basically do so much. A lot of times we hear music, we dance to it. It kind of brings on a vibration, energy, musical expression designed to honor. That's what we're going to speak about in this episode, to adore and praise God. Remember a while ago, there was a song that came out, and probably from someone we wasn't expecting to hear it from, but it was entitled, I Believe I Can Fly. Short statement, but the thought process itself resonated in so many different ways with a lot of different people. And I wanted to spend some time and just take that and go behind it. And I came across this article that I was reading, and it was written by Dr. Lyndia Grant. And I invited her to come on and share some more about what she wrote, and she accepted. So here we are. Welcome to When Black Men Talk, Dr. Lyndia Grant. How you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure.
No, the pleasure's all
I'm
ours.
good.
Trust me. Let's find out who you are, because other than, reading what you wrote, I have no idea who I'm speaking to. And I want people to feel at home, comfortable. And of course, we want to know who we're talking to. So let's hear more about you before we get started.
Well, I am Dr. Lyndia Grant. I always call myself the sharecropper's daughter because my family were sharecroppers in North Carolina, family of 9. Both my parents were ministers. Bishop Benjamin F. Grant, Pentecostal. My mother, Fannie Estelle Hill Grant. They both dead now. And my mother's family bought 226 acres in North Carolina back in 1945. So her family was and still are super successful. And a lot of why I am who I am, I'm sure comes from my grandfather, because he was able to keep that farm that he purchased in 1945. I always tell everybody that's 15 years before Dr. King. He was only 15 years old. But he was able to keep it through the North Carolina Supreme Court. So that's basically where I come from. But my father was a sharecropper. He didn't own the farm like my mother's family did. So I'm setting it up so you can know the two sides of who I come from. My father was a strong man, and I take a lot from him, but I also know what I got from my mom's side of the family. So being a sharecropper, she was married to him. She was out of that family loop, and she was over there now on the other side of the fence, and they worked farms. And oh my God, I put in tobacco. I am 74 years old, turning 75 on May 6th. And as a young girl, I picked cotton. I saw the school bus go by where I couldn't get on the school bus because the family had to be out in the field picking cotton. Or we might have been working in tobacco, whatever it was that we could do. We picked corn, we picked strawberries, blueberries, but I still was an honor student. And when I graduated in the 8th grade, I was, in that time, they wasn't talking about the top 10%. I was one of the top 10 smartest students, and I was number 8. And I was asked to be on the stage to do a part of the program, and I gave the class poem. And my poem was, the higher the climb, the broader the view. And so that poem has helped shape my life. So when the family moved to Washington, D.C., I had just graduated from the 8th grade, and my uncle picked me up and brought me. The family had already gone on, and I begged them to let me stay. And my classroom teacher let me stay with her in Kinston, North Carolina, because I wanted to give that speech, which helped shape me. I ended up becoming a speaker, too. So I am grateful for my humble early beginnings because it helped shape who I am today. Now, moving to Washington, D.C., of course, to speed this whole thing up, I graduated from McKinley High School in 1969 in Northeast Washington, D.C. Well, I started in junior high school and graduated in high school. Kids would laugh at me sometimes because, we didn't have a lot. I might wear some of my aunt's clothes that my mom had given me, use hand-me-downs, because in the country, just so those of you who may not understand what sharecroppers' life was like, The owners didn't, the people who lived in those homes, those little houses they gave us, you didn't have to pay any rent. Your rent was covered because you were working this man's farm. It was like it was yours. You had to do all the work and you didn't have to pay for anything. And you can go to the store and get groceries, but it would be on a tab. And so that's just how it was. But your job was to work. And when the farm produced crops in the fall, he would pay a percentage. And my father had been in the army and he knew how to count. And every time somebody would try to give him his portion, they would try to cheat him. And he ended up moving. We moved every year because he knew how to count and he knew how much money he was supposed to get. He ended up buying nice cars down there. And although it was a small portion, he did so well because he had all of us. So I wanted to say that to say, moving to the city, now you have to pay rent every month when family wasn't accustomed to that. So he and my mother ended up working in cleaners, pressing. And so we struggled. I'm saying that to say we struggled along and I had to get a job. And so kids would laugh at me. And people who listen to this and know me know that I went into learning everything about dressing for success because I did not want to keep crying, being sad because kids was laughing at me because of my personal appearance. So I studied books called Dressing for Success. I read them, looked, and I can even teach a class on it now. So that's one thing I got straight. And then as time went along, I got married. I had a domestic marriage. My husband had been in Vietnam. Evidently, I think he had PTSD, shell shock. You all have heard the story. A lot of Marines come out and they abusive. He did never hit me with his fist or anything, but he choked me. He would choke me. And so now I'm partially deaf in my right ear. So anyway, long story short, we stayed married until 1986. We moved to Los Angeles, California in 1978 or 79, and we stayed out there about 10 years. And I thought because he had so many side relationships that would help. It only got worse. So I moved back to Washington because God gave me a thought one day to start a business while I was out there. I just was reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that's how I got to my new life. I thought my husband was going to come back because he was from Washington, D.C., but he ended up making California his home. His whole family moved out there. All of them left D.C. and went, and we got divorced, and he's been married 4 times, but it's okay. We're still friends. I was married 17 years. We have 3 beautiful adult children. So I'm going to get to now how I got to this article. That's just a short version of my early background.
Dr. Lydia Grant, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt you because I want to go back and go back to what you read as a little girl and how you said it kind of was throughout your life. We'll come back to this point there.
Oh, yeah. My poem. The higher the climb, the broader the view. That's what I know this as well as you. And then I started talking about I started school in grammar school where we had to learn the golden rule. And I don't remember the whole poem, but I can still remember that from my 8th grade, from that long ago.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
I need to write it again, just write a brand new version of it. Matter of fact, you just gave me an idea. I will create a column on that. The higher the climb, the broader the view. And then I can elaborate on it in a new way.
Nice. That would be awesome. Okay. Now, let's go back to the day when you wrote the article behind basically, I Believe I Could Fly. Let's start. Let's go there.
Okay. Well, in the article, I start out by saying I awakened hearing music in the air. It was R. Kelly's I Believe I Can Fly. And so for some reason, I just kept hearing music in the air that week. I just kept hearing music in the air. I don't know what year I wrote this. It must have been before 2000. My mom was still alive. She died on Christmas Day in 2000. And I was still a student at Trinity University. I went back to college late and got my BA degree and my master's. But it was like music in the air. I've been writing this religion corner for 20 years, and God gives me inspiration. And whenever I get that inspiration, He's saying to my spirit very carefully, this is for your column. Because I'll take the topic and He'll tell me what all needs to be said. So He wanted me to encourage people, those who were down and out and had been, and I had been through all of it, who might have been divorced and husband wasn't paying child support like I'd had. Your parents die or you lose a child. I didn't lose a child, but my mom did. My brother was killed. He was a business owner, entrepreneur, and that just hurt our family so much. He was making a lot of money, and one of his employees set him up to be shot. I just want people to understand that these things are going to come and they're going to go, but we still got to stay focused and work on whatever it is God has given us. We got to believe in God and we got to believe in ourselves, and we have to always believe that miracles can happen. And as long as you can not allow negativity from other people to come in to your spirit, because I always remind people, I've said it so many times in my column, my dream was from God to me. It wasn't to you. All the billions of people in this world, He gave each and every one of us our own special goal. And so what we have to do in life is stop listening to naysayers, because they often want to tell us what we can and what we can't do, or what we should and we shouldn't do. Well, that's what God might have told you to do. That's not what He told me to do. So that's the gist of what I wanted people to get out of this column, is to believe in what it is for you to do. Do what you were sent here to do. Tell yourself over and over again, I believe I can fly.
Beautiful. The column that you wrote was for, if I'm correct, that's for the Washington Informer?
Yes, I've been writing for them for 20 years, but it's syndicated.
Okay.
By the National Newspaper Publishers Association and the Black Press USA. So the column actually, when you go to it, it says December 31st, 1969, but that's not true, because I graduated from high school in 69. I don't know what that might be, whatever the paper is, the syndication date. I don't understand what that date is, but I wrote it in the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at that too, and I figured it was something might have been when the newspaper started.
It's syndicated. No, I don't know what year the newspapers. I don't even know what that date is. Usually when I see my old columns, it shows the real date the article was published.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I can honestly say this one was probably about 15 years ago, because it was one of the early ones. I had been writing 21 years this year.
Okay. Over the 21 years writing for The Informer, what were some of the things you tried to convey or did convey to people that was reading your articles?
Well, it's two things I've done often. One, I did a series, it's about 7-week series on type 2 diabetes. So I've done a lot on health, because in the African American community, the Native American community, all of the community, even white communities, type 2 diabetes, billions of dollars are being spent all around the country. And my mom died from complications of diabetes, and everybody loved their mom, but I was the oldest girl of 4, and for some reason, by her being a minister, she encouraged me. She was the one almost in the place of God in my life, unfortunately. I had to find my own place and my own footing with God after she passed. I was so broken. But she was a teacher that taught me everything I needed to know. And so, only way I could help get over my grief was to tell her story. So if anybody out there listening, search for the Fannie Estelle Hill Grant story, Lyndia Grant, Religion Corner, the Washington Informer. You're going to see a series, because I learned everything I could about that. I became an ambassador with the American Diabetes Association so that I could teach people how to live healthy and not lose limbs the way she did. She lost both of her legs. She had so many, about 7 or 8 strokes, high blood pressure, all the things that go, kidney dialysis. She was getting having to go to the kidney center 2 and 3 times a week. It was just too much. And when we found out about it in the 1980s, we were not hadn't heard much about type 2 diabetes. She had 3 or 4 kids with master's degrees. I was still in college getting mine because I took mine late after my kids got grown. I went back to college. God just put in my spirit, you all are a very smart family, but you didn't know this. And so your job is to help more people know how to live successfully while living with type 2 diabetes. So I write it every year. I write the series and I just give it a new spin every year. So that's one thing. Then the second thing that I have done in my column is offer motivation and inspiration. Because although I moved to Washington, D.C. and went through all I did in my marriage, I became an entrepreneur, opened my business in 1983, February 11th, 1983, was able to do a bronze bust of Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson Sr. It is an official bronze bust because I got him to meet with the sculptor and the photographer so they could measure him and take pictures. And once she got it done, she needed him to come and sit in her studio on Capitol Hill for him to pose. And I'm thinking, Retha Walden Gambaro, she's dead now, the sculptor. How in the world do you think I can do that? I only been in business 2 years. And me, Jesse Jackson, he running for president. But you know what? You have to do just what I said in that article. I believe I can fly. I just started saying positive words to myself from Think and Grow Rich and being the daughter of 2 preachers. I was walking by faith and not by sight. And I said, okay, I believe I can get this done. I am going to get Jesse Jackson to come and pose for this. And so it took a lot. I took a lot of talking to myself and praying and thanking God in advance. But on that day in January, it was the inauguration of the Ronald Reagan's second presidency. It was a bad snow, and they had to cancel the outdoor swearing in. And the God spoke into my spirit and said, Jesse Jackson is in Washington for the inauguration, but he can't go to it. You might as well try to get him on the phone to see if he can go and pose for Retha Walden Gambaro at her studio. And I was able to get that done. I can't tell you, it would take too long to explain it, but he came to the studio and he posed. And so we unveiled the bronze bust of the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson on February 11th, 1985 at the Washington Convention Center. A small business who hadn't been in business for 2 years did that. And it was dedicated and unveiled by then Mayor Marion Barry, who's been dead for years now. That was before he ever got in trouble. He had a good name. He was a good mayor. We loved him. I have photographs of him unveiling the bronze bust. And it got placed in the convention center. Why did I do it? Because we had opened a business to teach people about resume writing and how to have effective job search techniques and strategies. I had learned that at my job at Children's Hospital in Oakland, California. And God put in my spirit while reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, start your business and help people with resumes. And so that's how I got started. And so the bronze bust unveiling was the anniversary of my company. 1 year, opened on February 11, 1983. 1984, we did the unveiling of the bronze bust. It wasn't finished, but we were able to unveil it in wax in 84. Then on February 11th, 85, it was finished. It was unveiled in bronze. And today it sits in Operations Push in Chicago, Illinois. And I have a photograph of me standing with Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson beside that monument. All his family came. His mom is dead, but she came up here from South Carolina. Her name is Helen Burns Jackson. So I want people to understand I didn't just write the column. I also have been doing exactly what the column said. You can see if I did all of that in 1983 and I had only just gotten started opening my doors to business, but you can see what happened. That helped me fly. You ought to know that if you were to do something that successful, it's going to change the trajectory of your life. And that's what changed the trajectory of my life. I got to getting calls, working on presidential inauguration, mayoral inaugurations in my business, getting called to be a speaker, have traveled to other countries to speak, have done all types of wonderful things because I believed I could fly and I listened and I did what God told me to do. And right now we're getting ready to meet with Rainbow Push sometime soon so we can get that official bronze bus replicated and get it out in stores all over the place.
Nice. Very nice.
Isn't that something?
Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I want to ask this, though, because this is something that we're going to come back to. I believe I can fly, but you said something when your mother passed, where your mother was, like you're in somewhat of a God, and when she passed, you had to move closer to God. And a lot of times, I want you to share that process, because I say that because a lot of us take the passing of our mother very hard. Yeah. And that's something that we don't talk about. A lot of us just carry it. And when we speak a little bit, we say how we feel, but we don't really open up and share it. If you don't mind, please sharing that with us, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I can. My mom was a minister, and when she would speak in church, there was something about her that would make tears come to people's eyes. She was just so real. It was something special about her. And a lot of times you don't realize what somebody meant to you till after they're gone. Unfortunately, I knew I was like connected to her in a strong way. I was the oldest of 4 daughters, and the president of the company had right now people work from home a lot, but we actually had a brick and mortar building in Washington, D.C. on Georgia Avenue, 7323 Georgia Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C. We had an office up on the 2nd floor. We didn't always know where we were going to get our rent every month. And sometimes I had to call my mother and she would pray with me. That's the part that I want people to understand, that my mother I was treating her like God, but then when she left, I didn't have her to call. So then I had to learn how to call on God for myself. I had to call him and make myself know that the same way I was going through my mom before, I could go directly to him. Because in the scripture, there's a scripture that talks about how the veil has been removed. We don't have to go through popes and priests and preachers or parents or anybody else. We have direct access to our God, and whatever religion it is you have, you can pray and believe in God for yourself. So that's how I was with my mom.
Wow. There it is. Dr. Lydia Grant, we have the pleasure of having her on Black Men Talk, and she wrote the article, I Believe I Can Fly. And when you think about the song itself, again, it says so much, and our article says so much. I wanted to, while I have you on, is take some of the lyrics, some of the simple lyrics, a phrase or two out of the song, and let's go behind them, what is spoken, said to you. And the one of them, the first one I wanted to do this with was I think about it every night and every day.
Mm-hmm.
When you first hear that, or you hear it now, how does that resonate with you?
Well, exactly. To me, that's what we have to do. We have to think about whatever it is our goal is. If you sit up here and think about it, when the words first started, it says, I used to think that I could not go on. and life was nothing but an awful song. But now I know the meaning of true love. I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. That's God right there. If I can see it, then I can do it. If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. I believe I can fly. So it's all about what we believe. If you don't believe it first, see, and I'm not talking about hypocritical or fake. It's work you have to do on yourself for you to get to that place. And I'm there because I'm going to tell you how I got there. I had to read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book over and over and over. For years, I read his book. I listened to his tapes. And in case you all don't know, that book is based on biblical principles. Videos of Napoleon Hill are on YouTube, but he talks about how he would get up every morning at 3 a.m. and read the Bible for 3 hours, and then he would read the Bible 3 more hours at night. So when he wrote Think and Grow Rich, it was like a way of turning the Bible into an action plan. So I don't know if anybody else know that, but I read it so much that I understand that I used to sit and have lessons with my mother and father who were ministers. And I said, you all are preaching and it's good, but you got to include some of this Napoleon Hill in it. And I would sit and explain to them, and they began to understand too. There's a chapter in there on faith. It talks about how you have to have a burning desire and how you got to have faith. That book and the steps in those principles to success that he researched for 20 years, which is also biblical, he said it is an insurance policy against failure. That's the thing that's stuck in my mind. He said, anybody who will do this and follow these principles, that's the second thing that I wrote in my column over the last 2 years that I repeat. One was my mom's diabetes story, and then 13 principles. Every year or so, I write those 13 principles in a new way, and I incorporate what's going on today with those principles because I'm going to be reaching new readers every year. And so it's every year I write a new version of it because I'm being pulled by God to share this story with other people. But I'm telling you, what helped me to get there was listening to that, was paying attention to those principles in that book.
You know, you're saying so much goodness, so much, but some things are just jumping out. They're bouncing out, like, really coming out.
Right. I'm glad to help you.
Oh yeah, the burning desire of faith. That right there alone jumps out. A burning desire of faith, and the insurance policy against failure. And when you think about faith in reality,
God, if you ever, insurance policy is something powerful.
Yes. I love the way that's phrased, because in reality, when you're walking by faith and you truly believe and you're trusting, that's the insurance policy right there.
Let me tell you something. When I was doing the grand opening to my company and the Bronze Bus, when I would put, back in the day, it was in the 80s, we had to go to the mailbox and mail out invitations. I can remember walking to the mailbox with these beautifully designed gold printed envelopes, not sure how I was going to get the money, but I went and I sent these invitations out anyway, even for the grand opening, especially because I felt like I had to start it out in the right style. So the invitations were wonderful. I ended up having Congressman Walter Fauntroy, who was the D.C. representative, come to my little office on Georgia Avenue as a keynote speaker. D.C. Councilmember Charlene Drew Jarvis, our office was in her ward. She's the daughter of Dr. Charles Drew. And Councilmember Nadine Winters, she's dead now, but we lived in her ward in Washington, D.C. I had the head of the Howard University Small Business Development Center, and I got some news media coverage, and I had a lot of people there. And Congressman Fauntroy said, I want to know who the parents of these sisters are, because you all are having some grand opening here with all of these dignitaries in here. And what in the world kind of business is this you all are starting? But it was from reading Think and Grow Rich and believing and knowing that you have to have faith. And the reason for me to say this to you, sir, is we didn't even have the money to pay for the stuff I was ordering. But I had left my job in Children's Hospital in Oakland, California, and came back here. And I had been applying for unemployment because when you move and transfer like that, you're entitled. And so it had been so long, for maybe 6 months or more, and I had not gotten my money. And guess what? I got a $2,500 check about a week or 10 days before my grand opening. We were so tickled. We had money to pay for the catering. I mean, because I've ordered everything first class. Plates, not paper plates. I had china, I had glasses and sterling gold, silver, and was able to pay the caterer, was able to go out and me and my sisters all buy brand new suits. We went to a discount place in Maryland and in Virginia called Frugal Fannies. It's not open anymore, but they had a lot of designer clothes at reduced prices. Oh, we were looking good. We had, we had used furniture in our office, but it was nice. Everything was set up good. Everything was decorated. We didn't know how we were going to get anything done, but we were walking by faith and not by sight because I had an insurance policy against failure. I had God, I believed, and I knew that whatever was going to happen was going to be all right because God had promised me it would, and it did. And even when I look back now, 40 years later, and realize what I did with the bronze bust of Reverend Jesse Jackson, his funeral was so huge I couldn't stop watching. I watched the funeral in Charlotte. I watched the one at the big church. I watched the big center. I watched the one at Push headquarters, and I even saw Roland Martin with the bronze bust behind him. And I said to myself, and God had me do that 40 some years ago. I didn't understand what he was doing, but I did it because what it did was part of what he sent me down here to do. It was part of my life. It was the trajectory that was going to launch me out into the deep. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know. But look what happened. All of that happened when I had no money, but walked to the mailbox and put the invitations in there. But it's a connection you got to have with God, and you got to believe it. Every fiber of your being has to believe it because you can't be fake. Because if you got doubt, it's not going to happen for you. That's the key right there. You cannot have doubt. Doubt and faith can't live in the same place at the same time.
You're speaking it. You are definitely speaking it. Another lyric I want to pull out and speak to, and I love this one here. This one, it's like it's a revelation. I see me running through the open door.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. When I wrote my first book, it was called Turning Milestones into Stepping Stones. And I had a door on the cover, and there was a light shining through the keyhole so that there's light on the other side of that door. And so I wanted people to understand, and even there, you just got to open that door and go through it. Because there's a whole life out there for people. But it's all about what they believe. You see some standing out there on the corner because something might have happened and they lost it. And then you have some that are walking around with suits going to work every day. They still have lost it, but they're just barely making it because something is going on in life that's so hard for them. They're going to therapists. You might not even have the right therapist. But we can do the work on ourselves if we will just concentrate. You got to set aside time for you to work on the inside. The same way when I first came to Washington, D.C., and I wanted to look nice, which I was able to achieve. I worked hard on that and got it done. Then I decided I already know how to make me look nice. Now I want to heal me from the inside. Heal my broken heart, my broken spirit. Help me be strong no matter what anybody say or do to me. Let me be able to see myself going through the open door, regardless. Be like Alice in Wonderland. There's a huge world out there for us. You're going to be able to find your way.
How did you heal yourself from the inside? That's the question right there, because a
A
lot of us
chapter,
don't know how.
a chapter in Napoleon Hill's book called Autosuggestion teaches you what to write so that every day when I woke up, there was a statement I had to learn. And when I had my a job training program at when I had my company called Critique Career Management Services, writing resumes, we got a contract with the DC Department of Employment Services. And I used that textbook to teach my students because they were mostly adults, low income, had been in the projects and had never even been up Northwest where my office was. And I had to work hard. I taught a class called taught a class called Think and Grow Rich from the book, changing the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the textbook was that Think and Grow Rich book. And so every day for 2 hours every day, I would go in that class and I would start from the beginning and gave them homework. But what you just asked me was most important. I made them learn, say how we start the class is think poem. Let's stand up and say this think poem together. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you won't. If you want to win and you think you can, it's almost certain you won't. I don't remember all the lyrics now because it's been a while since I said it, but they had to learn the think poem. They had to learn another statement that I used to have them say every day from Napoleon Hill's book about how to treat other people. You know, you're not going to be successful if you. It was statements, and so those things helped when they graduated. The speaker that was at our graduation started saying the think poem, and my students stood right up and they could say the think poem with him. They could stand up and say several poems that he said because it's all about reprogramming your thinking, reprogramming your thinking. You have to put it on your wall. You have to memorize it. See, what you have to do is it's like grass growing in your brain, the negativity. How do you replant that? Replacing with something new. But it takes time. You have to become committed enough to say, I'm going to keep working on me. I'm going to keep working on me. And that's what I did. And that's why I know that I was healed from whatever happened to me and can now share that with other people. I don't know if others will work as hard as I did to get there, but I knew that I had to because of where I had come from in North Carolina. And because my parents didn't know to teach me this, it was you have to blaze a brand new trail sometime and go places. Can you imagine someone coming from the country like I did, North Carolina, farm girl, moving to the city, not having much and wearing used clothes and being able to work your way out of all that poverty and be able to, I ended up with contracts making over $1 million in Washington, D.C., teaching about diabetes, type 2 diabetes, because Mary Health Caritas DC heard me speaking at a church telling the people about my mother's story, and they said, we got to hire that lady. They did. I was able to hire staff, and we did the diabetes thing about 6 years until COVID came, and then we couldn't go out and do our seminars teaching low-income people how to eat, and doctors, nurses, exercise gurus, even served a healthy meal. All of these things will happen after you reprogram your thinking and don't allow people in your head. Don't allow other people to take up the space in your head. That's something you and God should do. You got to decide what you want to do for you, and nobody else can tell you. But it takes work. Why did I say in the beginning how I read the book over and over so many times? I even turned it into workshops, which I do. I do workshops on Think and Grow Rich so that when I come to somebody, I can have handouts and guides and teach people how they can actually reprogram their thinking. And the chapter is called Autosuggestion. So if you buy the book and you pick up the book, go to Autosuggestion. That chapter tells you how to reprogram your thinking, things you need to memorize, things you need to do daily, things you need to look in the mirror and say to yourself. but nobody else can do that for you but you, and then you can do it. It becomes automatic. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
Your brain is refurbished because you did it over. Just like you redo a brand new house. You leave the bricks outside, but you put everything brand new inside.
You're not leaving no stone unturned. I love it.
Exactly.
We're speaking with Dr. Lydia Grant. I want to ask this, and then I want to go into hearing about the book she wrote. But in your article, the word humble was in there. And all of that, what you're speaking of, to me, that is the entry point to reprogramming yourself and all of above. You must start there to humble yourself.
Exactly right. I read this column to my daughter, my granddaughter, the other night. I was picking her up from her dance school. And I told her while I was waiting for her to finish, I was going over my notes and rereading this column. A gentleman called me to be a guest on his podcast. And she said, let me hear it. And when I read it, I remember that statement stood out quite a bit in my mind. But it's so true. It too comes from the Bible and Napoleon Hill. He said, I went outside to enjoy the low. So no, that's not the part. I was looking for the word humble in my column. But anyway, God tells us to be humble. Right now, sir, when I'm walking around in the streets, I'm just a regular everyday person. A lot of people at my old church or some of my friends, they'll say, people don't know who you are. They just think you're some regular person. I am. But it's not about what this frame looks like. I look nice and I look decent, but I'm humble. I'm sincere. I sit down and I talk to people, and I'm not talking about who I am or what I'm doing. I'm just living in this world the way Jesus did when he walked the earth. You just walk the earth and deal with people and be kind and help them. Don't wear who you are and what you've been doing on your shoulders and act like you're too good to deal. No, you just be one of the regular people because you have been redone and you are this person. Because they'll say to me, girl, I don't know. I'll run into somebody in DC who know me that I don't know, and they just go crazy. Oh, I'm so glad to meet you. People who've been in my class, how much you taught us. I just feel good already because when God takes me home, I was humble and I help the least of one is what his word tell us to do. You help people along the way. And that's what I've been able to do. And that's what humility will do for you. I drive a Jaguar and I wear St. John suits, but I'm still humble. You have to. When you're in a line of work, you go somewhere to speak, you better come in there looking decent. And you better be right, because that's part of what I had to learn when I was a young girl. So I can't let that part go. All I do is I change it depending on the age group I'm in. As you get older, I'm 74 now, so I have a different style than I did when I was young. I had the Diana Ross look when I was young. she was my role model.
Okay.
And I took pictures when I was young, and I was a sharp sister too. Not tacky, not gaudy, just sharp. There's a difference. And so that's what I try to do now as well. Not try, I do. I do still look nice even today. So it's all a whole redoing of yourself. And that's what humility is. And you can still be humble even though you come out there looking sharp and driving your Jaguar. Because God helped you to get it. A Jaguar is paid for. And you don't owe nobody nothing. You just pay your car insurance. That's what I'm talking about. That's how he'll bless us.
Look out now.
Just be humble and help other people.
Yeah. You wrote, you spoke that you wrote a book, or you wrote some books. Let's hear about the books that you penned for yourself.
Well, one was Turning Milestones into Stepping Stones. That's the one I talked about with the key, the door and the key. And I actually have some of those right now. The other one was The Sharecropper's Daughter. And the subtitle on that is, it's not where you begin, but where you end that counts. It was on Amazon, and but the company closed and it's sold out now. So I'm looking for a publisher so I can get a new version of it come out. And so those are the main two books that I have written. And then I've been a part of, I forget the word when you've been one of 8 authors. I was part of another book where I wrote my chapter about Reverend Jesse Jackson. Each of us just had a chapter in a book. So I do have those 3. And I'm working on my next one that's coming up. I haven't done a lot of writing. I'm retired now, so I have more time.
Okay.
And doing my podcast too.
Okay. What's the name of your podcast?
My podcast is on YouTube, Think and Grow Rich, my radio show, because I have a radio show. I've been on for 15 years on Radio 1 Washington. And it's Spirit 1340, the Lindy Grant Show. So you go to Think on These Things, the Lindy Grant Show. You will see my radio show and my column. I mean, it's my radio show and my podcast. I've only done about 6 podcasts so far, but I believe they're very good. One was with Denise Rolock Barnes, who owns the Washington Informer newspaper. She also was the chair for the annual Martin Luther King holiday parade that happened in January. And then I did one with Dr. Charlene Drew Jarvis, the former council member, daughter of Dr. Charles Drew. It was done in February for Black History Month. We were talking about life with her father, and I'm working now to get that podcast in universities. It's some steps that I have to take to turn it into a lesson plan so that it could be included, because she was giving out so much history of what blood plasma was about. And so that's the kind of podcast I've been doing. I've done about 6 so far.
Very nice. Very nice. And are you still writing for the Washington Informer?
I am. I write every week. I sure do.
Okay.
Matter of fact, my column I just sent in, I did a promotion about it. It's I don't remember the exact title, but it's talking about how joy and sorrow can be in your life at the same time. And I know a lot of people don't act like they could figure how in the world can you have joy and sorrow at the same time. But let me just say, in my column, I give people an opportunity to see how that can possibly happen. You can definitely have joy and sorrow simultaneously. It's just as the way it is. And the topic of my column it's called Two Realities. It's basically what it is.
Okay.
And so this week, that's what I talk about.
Okay. Dr. Lydia Grant, I want to thank you for stopping by and really enlightening us.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing where someone is given a song, as you spoke of R. Kelly earlier, how God basically used him as a vessel to inspire and lift us and encourage us.
Yes.
And, it's up to us, once it's given to someone else, to take it and use it for the goodness that it's intended for. And we could see you have been doing that, gracefully. And I thank you for that. I do. I really thank you for that, because we need people like yourself to keep speaking, to keep sharing, to keep encouraging. Yes, real good stuff.
I thank you for inviting me. And your radio voice is so fantastic. You sound so great. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to tell you something.
This show.
I'm going to tell you that joy. If you don't mind coming back and speaking on the joy and sorrow, I would like to have you back on that, because
I'd be glad to talk about joy and sorrow, because that's a good one. God, I was watching a movie. See, because my columns are mostly inspired by God. I was watching a movie, and I just heard a gentleman say, life is like joys and sorrow, because they were talking about something. And so I said, there's a column. God will say to me, and there's a column. I wrote myself a text message, texted it to myself, and that's how I came up. I've gotten hundreds of columns like that.
Beautiful.
In 20 years, every week, that's a lot of articles.
That's a lot of articles, yes.
I told them in my will, I told my kids, I said, what you do is you turn your mother's columns into a book. And that's something that I may do, if God let me live long enough, is turn my columns into a book, inspirational book. That's already in the progress. I'm working on it. Just got to find the right publisher.
Wow.
Right. Do you know I got calls from people in mothers who said my son is in prison, but I send him your column every week, and they're so excited about the inspirational things I say. I would have to sit down and say, God, what are you doing? You telling me these things. I'm hearing from people all over the country. I wrote about domestic violence to get it out of my spirit, and I would hear from people all over the place thanking me for what I wrote about, helping them to understand how to get out of it. It's just amazing, all the
You're,
paths that get created when you listen to God and you do what it is He sent you down here to do.
yes. Yes.
And then you gotta keep believing. I believe I can fly.
Oh,
Gotta believe
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. We all are vessels, whether we choose to understand or believe that or not. We all are vessels. There's a side of us, as you spoke earlier. It's just a matter of what we choose to do with and then what we listen to hear from him, how to use and be a vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hang tight for a second. I'm going to close this off and I'm going to come right back to you and speak to you a little bit more. Folks, I want to thank you for always giving us an ear on When Black Men Talk. As you can hear, these conversations are enriched. They really are. And I love sometimes when I'm having conversations, I can just sit back and have to say much and it's spoken for itself. So once again, I want to thank Dr. Lydia Grant for stopping by. I also want to thank you for listening, because it takes something to realistically hit that play button and spend time and allow your mind to open up and hear. You know, God loves you and I love you too. Take care of yourself. We'll get together real soon.